What would you do if the one moment you smiled for the sake of your career became the weapon that destroyed your marriage? I'm Vesna Lirienne, and I thought I knew the answer until my husband handed me divorce papers in front of my entire HR department. The ballroom at the Meridian Hotel sparkled with corporate ambition that Thursday evening. Crystal chandeliers cast perfect light on networking conversations that could make or break careers. I smoothed my black cocktail dress and checked my reflection in my phone screen one last time. "You look fine, Vesna," Nate said quietly beside me, adjusting his tie. My husband of 8 years looked uncomfortable in his navy suit, like he always did at these company events. "Fine isn't good enough tonight," I replied, scanning the room for Marshall Davenant, my boss and the regional director who held my promotion in his perfectly manicured hands. "This is about our future, Nate. Mina's college fund, the house renovation we've been talking about." Nate nodded, but I caught him glancing toward the exit. Typical. He never understood that success required sacrifice, required playing the game with people who mattered. "There he is," I whispered, spotting Marshall's silver hair near the bar. At 47, he commanded every room he entered with that easy confidence that came from never having to worry about money or job security. "Vesna," Marshall's voice boomed as we approached, and this must be the famous Nate I've heard so much about. He extended his hand with that politician's smile that made board members and clients melt. "Nice to meet you, Mr. Davenant," Nate replied, his handshake firm but brief. "Marshall, please. We're all family here." His laugh was practiced, professional. "Vesna's been absolutely indispensable this quarter. The Morrison account alone brought in $2.3 million. I felt my cheeks warm with pride. It was a team effort. "Nonsense. You sealed that deal with pure talent." Marshall's hand found my lower back as he guided us toward a group of senior executives. The touch lingered longer than necessary, his palm warm through the thin fabric of my dress. I glanced at Nate, whose jaw had tightened almost imperceptibly. He was being ridiculous. This was networking, not some romantic overture. Marshall treated all his successful employees this way, with familiarity that showed trust and respect. "Gentlemen, ladies," Marshall announced to the circle of power players, "I want you to meet Vesna Lirienne, our rising star in client relations." The introductions flowed like expensive wine. Vice presidents, senior partners, people whose names appeared on company newsletters and quarterly reports. Marshall's hand remained on my back, occasionally sliding to my waist as he emphasized points about my performance. "The Morrison presentation was flawless," he continued, his fingers splaying slightly against my hip. "Vesna has that rare combination of analytical skill and personal charm that clients can't resist." I beamed, feeling like I belonged in this circle for the first time in my career. These were the conversations that happened without mid-level administrators like me. But tonight, Marshall was making sure I was seen, heard, valued. "What's your background, Nate?" asked Patricia Hendricks, the VP of Operations. "IT consulting," Nate replied simply. "Network security mostly." "Fascinating," she said with the polite disinterest reserved for spouses who couldn't contribute to business discussions. Marshall squeezed my waist gently. "Vesna's the real powerhouse in that family. I predict big things ahead." The group laughed appreciatively. I felt Marshall's thumb trace a small circle against my dress, so subtle I almost wondered if I'd imagined it. When I looked at Nate, his face had gone completely blank. That mask he wore when he was angry, but trying to control it. He was embarrassing me. Here I was, finally getting recognition from the people who mattered, and he was sulking like a child who wasn't getting enough attention. "Excuse me," Nate said quietly. "I need some air." He walked away without waiting for a response, leaving me standing there with Marshall's hand still resting possessively on my waist. "Everything all right?" Marshall asked, his voice low and concerned. "He's just not used to these events," I said quickly, forcing a bright smile. "You know how introverts can be." "Of course." "Well, shall we get you a proper drink?" I think this calls for champagne. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of important conversations and strategic positioning. Marshall introduced me to everyone who mattered, his hand finding reasons to touch my shoulder, my back, my arm. Each contact felt like validation, like proof that I was finally being taken seriously. I found Nate sitting alone at our assigned table, scrolling through his phone. "Having fun?" I asked, sliding into the chair beside him. "Riveting," he replied without looking up. "Don't be like that. This is important for us." "Is it?" He finally met my eyes. "Because it looks like it's important for you and Marshall." "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing, Vesna. Forget I said anything." But I could see it in his expression. That judgment, that small-minded inability to understand how professional relationships worked. He was threatened by my success, intimidated by the fact that important people valued my contributions. "I'm networking, Nate. It's called advancing my career." "Right, networking." He returned to his phone, but I noticed he was taking photos. The room, the crowd, even a few shots that seemed to include our table. "What are you doing?" "Just documenting the evening," he said mildly. "For Mina. She wanted to see pictures of you all dressed up." That made sense. Our 7-year-old daughter loves seeing photos from my work events, always asking if I'd met any important people or famous business leaders. Later that night, as we drove home in silence, I caught Nate uploading photos to his laptop. The screen reflected in the passenger window showed folder names I didn't recognize, files being organized with the methodical precision he brought to his IT work. "What's all that?" I asked. "Just backing things up," he said. "You know me. I like having records." I shrugged it off. Nate had always been obsessive about digital organization, maintaining multiple backups of everything from family photos to tax documents. It was one of his more endearing quirks, even if it seemed excessive sometimes. I had no idea he was building a case that would destroy everything I'd worked for. The whispers started the Monday after the gala. I caught fragments of conversations that died when I walked past cubicles, saw colleagues exchanging glances that lasted a beat too long. By Wednesday, I knew something was circulating. "Did you see the photos from the networking event?" my coworker Janet asked during our coffee break, her voice carefully neutral. "Which ones?" I kept my tone light, professional. "Someone posted them in the company social group. You and Marshall looked very collaborative." My stomach tightened. We were discussing the Morrison account. Marshall was introducing me to potential clients. "Of course," Janet said quickly. "It's just that some people are talking. You know how office gossip can be." I knew exactly how office gossip could be. Vicious, career-ending, especially for women who dared to be successful. The double standard was infuriating. When men networked aggressively, they were ambitious. When women did the same thing, suddenly it was inappropriate. That evening, I tried to explain the situation to Nate over dinner. Mina was upstairs doing homework, giving us privacy to discuss adult concerns. "People are making something out of nothing," I said, stabbing my salad more aggressively than necessary. Marshall was being professional, introducing me to senior executives, but apparently, some people can't handle seeing a woman succeed on her own merits. Nate cut his chicken methodically, each piece exactly the same size. "What kind of something are they making out of it?" The usual petty office drama, implying that my relationship with Marshall is somehow inappropriate just because he recognizes my value as an employee. "I see. You see? That's all you have to say?" I set down my fork. "Your wife is being subjected to workplace harassment, and you just sit there like it's no big deal. What would you like me to do, Vesna? Support me. Show some outrage that people are trying to undermine my career with baseless rumors." Nate finally looked up from his plate. "Are they baseless?" The question hit like a slap. "Excuse me?" "I was there, Vesna. I saw how he was touching you, how you were responding to it. He was being friendly. That's how successful people interact. They're warm, personable. Just because you're uncomfortable with normal professional relationships doesn't mean something inappropriate was happening. Normal professional relationships don't involve hands on waists and whispered conversations. I laughed, but it came out sharp and bitter. This is exactly what I'm talking about. You're so insecure about your own career that you can't handle me succeeding in mine. Marshall treats me like a valued colleague, and you immediately assume the worst because you can't imagine someone actually respecting my abilities. Nate's jaw tightened. That's not what this is about. Isn't it? When was the last time anyone at your IT company invited you to a gala? When was the last time a senior executive praised your work in front of industry leaders? Vesna, I'm finally getting the recognition I deserve, and instead of celebrating with me, you're joining the office gossips who want to tear me down. It's pathetic, Nate. Really pathetic. He stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the hardwood floor. I'm going to check on Mina. Run away. That's your solution to everything. But he was already gone, leaving me alone with my righteous anger and the growing certainty that everyone around me was too small-minded to understand what real success looked like. The next day, I decided to address the rumors head-on. During lunch with my work friends, I brought up the situation with carefully crafted casualness. I swear, some people in this office have never seen professional networking before, I said, rolling my eyes as I unwrapped my sandwich. Apparently, when Marshall introduced me to the senior executives at the gala, it was somehow scandalous. What do you mean? Asked Lisa from accounting. Oh, you know how it is. A woman gets recognition for her work, and suddenly people are implying there must be something inappropriate going on. It's textbook workplace sexism. That's awful, Janet agreed. What does Nate think about all this? I sighed dramatically. Honestly, I think he's having trouble adjusting to my success. He's always been the primary breadwinner, and now that I'm moving up in the company, it's threatening to his sense of masculinity. Last night he actually suggested that Marshall's behavior was inappropriate, which is completely ridiculous. Men can be so insecure, Lisa said sympathetically. Exactly. I love Nate, but he has this old-fashioned idea that wives should be content with supporting roles. The thought of me having a real career, making real money, networking with important people, it makes him uncomfortable. Have you considered counseling? Janet asked. I've suggested it, but he's resistant. I think he knows a therapist would tell him that his jealousy is the real problem here, not my professional relationships. The conversation continued along those lines, with my colleagues offering support and validation. It felt good to have people understand my perspective, to see through the petty rumors to the real issue. Small-minded people trying to diminish a successful woman. What I didn't notice was how carefully I was constructing the narrative, how each conversation painted Nate as increasingly inadequate and insecure. I was so focused on defending myself that I didn't realize I was systematically destroying my husband's reputation among our social circle. That evening, Gloria, Nate's mother, called during dinner. Hi, Gloria, I answered cheerfully. How are you? I'm concerned about my son, she said without preamble. Gloria had never been one for small talk, especially when she sensed family drama. What do you mean? He seems stressed lately, distant. Is everything all right between you two? I glanced at Nate, who was helping Mina with her math homework at the kitchen table. We're fine, just some workplace drama that's got everyone on edge. What kind of workplace drama? Oh, you know how office gossip can be. Some people are making something out of nothing because my boss has been recognizing my contributions. Nate's having trouble adjusting to me being successful. There was a long pause. That doesn't sound like my son. Well, maybe you don't know him as well as you think you do, I said, my voice sharper than intended. Success changes people. Sometimes it reveals insecurities we didn't know existed. Another pause. I see. Well, please tell him I called. Of course. But as I hung up, I caught Nate watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. It wasn't anger or hurt. It was something colder, more calculating. like he was solving a complex problem and had just identified the key variable. That night, as I was getting ready for bed, I found him at his computer again, organizing files with that same methodical precision I'd noticed after the gala. "Still backing up photos?" I asked. "Among other things," he replied without turning around. "You know, if you put half as much energy into your own career advancement as you do into digital filing, maybe you wouldn't feel so threatened by mine." He finally turned to face me. "Is that what you think this is about? Career advancement? What else would it be about?" "Nothing, Vesna. You're absolutely right. This is all about career advancement." Something in his tone made me pause, but before I could analyze it further, my phone buzzed with a text from Marshall. "Great work on the Peterson proposal. Drinks tomorrow to celebrate?" I smiled, typing back, "Absolutely. Looking forward to it." When I looked up, Nate had returned to his computer, his fingers flying across the keyboard with the focused intensity he usually reserved for debugging critical security vulnerabilities. I had no idea he was debugging me. The Peterson proposal celebration turned into a 3-hour dinner at Chez Laurent, the kind of upscale restaurant where deals were made and careers were launched. Marshall had reserved a quiet corner table, intimate enough for confidential business discussions. "You've outdone yourself this time," he said, raising his wine glass. "Peterson specifically requested that you handle the implementation personally. That's a 7-figure vote of confidence." I felt the familiar warmth of professional validation. I just gave them what they needed, a comprehensive solution with clear ROI projections. "It's more than that. You have instincts that can't be taught." His hand covered mine across the table. "I've been thinking about your career trajectory, Vesna. There are opportunities coming up that would be perfect for someone with your skills." "What kind of opportunities?" "Senior client relations manager. It would mean a substantial salary increase, your own team, direct access to the executive committee." His thumb traced across my knuckles. "Of course, it would require some late nights, weekend events, travel with the senior staff." "I can handle that." "I know you can. The question is whether your husband can handle it." I pulled my hand back, suddenly aware of how the gesture might look to other diners. "What do you mean?" He seemed uncomfortable at the gala. Some spouses have trouble adjusting when their partners start moving in higher circles. Nate just needs time to adjust. He's not used to corporate environments. "Of course. I just want to make sure you have the support you need at home. This promotion would be demanding, and I'd hate to see domestic issues interfere with your performance." The implication was clear. My marriage problems were becoming a professional liability. I needed to either fix things with Nate or make sure his insecurities didn't impact my career. "There won't be any issues," I said firmly. "I can separate my personal and professional lives." "I'm sure you can. You're remarkably mature for someone your age." His smile was warm, paternal, but his eyes held something else. "Shall we order dessert? I find these conversations always go better with good wine and chocolate." By the time I got home, it was nearly 11 p.m. Nate was in his office, surrounded by printouts and manila folders spread across his desk like evidence in a criminal investigation. "Working late?" I asked, loosening my blazer. "You could say that." He didn't look up from whatever document he was reviewing. "The Peterson deal is moving forward. Marshall thinks it could lead to a promotion." "Congratulations." "That's it. Your wife might become a senior manager, and all you can say is congratulations." He finally looked at me, his expression neutral. "What would you like me to say, Vesna?" "Some enthusiasm would be nice. Some recognition that this is a big deal for our family." "Right, for our family." He turned back to his papers. "How was dinner with Marshall?" "It was a business meeting. We discussed the Peterson implementation and potential career advancement opportunities." "At Chez Laurent." I paused. "How did you know where we went?" "Lucky guess. It's where you've been having a lot of business meetings lately." "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing, just an observation." He held up a credit card statement. According to our joint account, you've had business dinners there 4 times in the past 6 weeks, always on nights when you said you were working late. My heart rate spiked, but I kept my voice steady. Marshall prefers to discuss sensitive client matters away from the office. It's perfectly normal. I'm sure it is. Nate's tone was maddeningly calm. Just like the rideshare charges that match your overtime hours. Very thorough documentation of your work schedule. Are you tracking my movements now? I'm reviewing our household expenses. You know, basic financial management. Making sure we understand where our money goes. This is insane, Nate. You're acting paranoid. Am I? He stood up, gathering the papers into neat stacks. Or am I just paying attention for the first time? Paying attention to what? Patterns, Vesna. I work in data analysis, remember? I'm very good at identifying patterns. The way he said it made my skin crawl. There was something methodical about his behavior, something deliberate that went beyond simple jealousy or insecurity. I don't like what you're implying. I'm not implying anything. I'm just organizing information. He slid the papers into a folder labeled Household Expenses Q3. Very important to keep good records. For what? For whatever might require documentation later. That night I lay awake staring at the ceiling, replaying the conversation. Nate had never been suspicious or controlling before. This new behavior felt calculated, like he was building towards something I couldn't see. The next morning brought an email that made my blood freeze. From anonymous.observer, 2023, Proton Mail. Com to vlirienneacompany.com. Subject, you might want to see this before it circulates, Vesna. Thought you should know that photos from the networking gala are making rounds on social media. Specifically, this screenshot from video, taken during the executive introductions. You might want to get ahead of this before it reaches HR. A friend. The attached image showed Marshall's hand resting on my waist, his body angled toward mine in a way that looked intimate rather than professional. In the background, Nate stood watching with an expression of barely controlled anger. My hand shook as I forwarded the email to my personal account and deleted it from my work system. Someone was actively trying to sabotage my career, and I had a sinking suspicion about who that someone might be. During lunch, I called my sister Kira from the parking lot. Someone sent me a photo from the gala, I said without preamble. It's taken out of context, but it could be damaging if it gets to the wrong people. What kind of photo? Marshall and me during the networking session. His hand is on my waist, which looks bad without context, but it was completely innocent. Just professional networking. Who sent it? Anonymous email. But Kira, I think it might be Nate. There was a long pause. Your husband? He's been acting strange lately, tracking my expenses, asking weird questions about my work schedule. Last night, I caught him organizing papers like he was building some kind of case against me. That's crazy. Why would he do that? Because he can't handle my success. He's threatened by Marshall's attention, so he's trying to sabotage my career. It's classic controlling behavior. What are you going to do? I don't know, but I can't let his insecurities destroy everything I've worked for. This promotion could change our entire financial situation, set us up for life. And he's willing to throw it all away because his ego can't handle having a successful wife. Maybe you should talk to a lawyer. About what? About protecting yourself. If Nate is really trying to sabotage your career, you need to document it, build your own case. The idea had merit. If Nate was going to play games with anonymous emails and expense tracking, maybe it was time to level the playing field. That afternoon, I made 2 phone calls. One to a divorce attorney, just for consultation, and one to Marshall. I need to talk to you about something sensitive, I told him. Can we meet after work? Of course. The usual place. Actually, let's go somewhere new. I think we're being watched. Watched? By whom? I'll explain everything tonight. As I hung up, I noticed Nate's car in the parking lot across the street. He was sitting behind the wheel, looking directly at my office building. The game, whatever game we were playing, had just escalated. The glass-walled HR conference room felt like a fishbowl as Paula Shin, our HR director, spread documents across the polished table. Through the transparent walls, I could see colleagues pretending not to stare while they walked past. "We need to discuss some concerns that have been brought to our attention," Paula said, her voice professionally neutral. At 51, she'd handled enough workplace drama to remain unflappable, but I caught the slight tension around her eyes. "What kind of concerns?" I kept my voice steady, though my heart was hammering. "Expense irregularities, primarily. Your corporate card shows repeated charges at high-end restaurants during claimed overtime hours. The receipts indicate meals for two, but no client names are listed." She slid a printout across the table. My signature was on every receipt, along with timestamps that matched my late-night work schedule perfectly. Those were working dinners with Marshall, Mr. Davenant. We were discussing sensitive client matters away from the office. "I see. And these rideshare charges?" Another document appeared. "Multiple rides to and from Chez Laurent, Bistro Moderne, the Capitol Grill, all during evening hours when your badge shows you'd already left the building." My mouth went dry. "I don't understand what you're implying." "I'm not implying anything, Vesna. I'm asking for clarification on expense reports that don't align with your documented work schedule." "There must be some mistake with the badge data. Sometimes I forget to badge out, or I come back to the office after dinner to finish projects." Paula consulted another sheet. "According to building security, your badge hasn't been used for after-hours access in over 2 months. The cleaning crew confirms your office has been empty during all the times in question." The walls felt like they were closing in. "This is obviously some kind of technical error, or maybe someone is deliberately trying to make my legitimate business expenses look suspicious." "Who would do that?" "I don't know, but I've been getting anonymous emails with photos from company events, taken out of context to make professional networking look inappropriate. Someone is clearly trying to sabotage my career." Paula made a note. "Do you still have these emails?" "I deleted them. They were obviously harassment." "I see. Well, we'll need to suspend your corporate card pending a full review. And I'm afraid we'll need a formal statement from both you and Mr. Davenant about the nature of these business dinners." My stomach dropped. "You're involving Marshall in this?" "Standard procedure when expense irregularities involve multiple employees." "When is his meeting?" "That's confidential, but I will say that we've already received a legal preservation notice regarding this matter, so all relevant communications and records will need to be retained." "A legal preservation notice? From whom?" "I can't discuss ongoing legal matters, but I'd suggest you might want to consult with an attorney yourself." As I walked back to my office on unsteady legs, my phone buzzed with a text from Marshall. "Need to talk. Not at the office. Meet me at the Starbucks on 5th Street in an hour." When I arrived, Marshall was already there, his usually perfect appearance slightly disheveled. His silver hair looked like he'd been running his hands through it, and his expensive suit was wrinkled. "This is a disaster," he said without preamble. "HR called me in this morning. They have documentation going back months, receipts, badge data, even security footage from restaurant parking lots." "Security footage?" "Your husband's attorney sent a preservation notice to the company, to the restaurants we've been to, even to the rideshare companies. They're collecting everything, Vesna. Everything." I felt the blood drain from my face. Nate hired an attorney. A good one, apparently. Someone who knows exactly what evidence to request and how to request it legally. They're not making accusations. They're just preserving records for potential future proceedings. "What kind of proceedings?" Marshall's expression was grim. "Divorce proceedings, with a focus on marital misconduct and financial impropriety." "But we haven't done anything illegal, haven't we?" He leaned forward, lowering his voice. "Vesna, I've been charging business dinners to my corporate account while having what could be construed as personal relationships with a subordinate. The company could fire me for that alone. Personal relationships? Is that what you're calling our professional mentoring? Is that what you're calling it? His eyes were cold now, calculating. Because the evidence suggests something more than mentoring. What evidence? The timing, the locations, the frequency, the way you've been talking about your husband to colleagues, creating a narrative that justifies your behavior. It looks like a classic affair, Vesna, and now there's a paper trail that proves it. We never crossed any lines, didn't we? The touching at the gala, the intimate dinners, the late-night texts. Maybe we didn't sleep together, but we created the appearance of an inappropriate relationship. And in corporate America, appearance is reality. I stared at him, seeing clearly for the first time how calculated his behavior had been. The touches, the compliments, the career promises, all designed to make me complicit in something I hadn't fully understood I was participating in. You used me, I whispered. We used each other, he corrected. You wanted career advancement, I wanted companionship, but now it's become a liability for both of us. So, what happens now? Now I protect myself. I'm meeting with HR tomorrow to provide a statement clarifying the professional nature of our relationship. I'll be emphasizing that any personal elements were initiated by you and that I maintained appropriate boundaries throughout. You're throwing me under the bus. I'm surviving, Vesna. Something you should consider doing yourself. That evening, I came home to find Nate calmly making dinner while Mina did homework at the kitchen table. The normalcy of the scene felt surreal after the day's revelations. How was work? He asked, not looking up from the stir-fry. Interesting. It seems my husband has been busy. Oh? How so? Legal preservation notices, Nate. Really? He glanced at Mina, then back at me. We should discuss this later. No, let's discuss it now. I want to know why you're trying to destroy my career. I'm not trying to destroy anything. I'm protecting my family. By sabotaging my professional relationships? By documenting your behavior, there's a difference. What behavior? Having business dinners? Networking with my boss? Nate finally turned to face me fully. Vesna, I have receipts showing 43 separate occasions over the past 4 months when you claimed to be working late but were actually at restaurants with Marshall. I have rideshare records showing trips that match those dinner times exactly. I have text messages, email timestamps, and credit card records that paint a very clear picture of deception. Deception? I was advancing my career. By lying to me about where you were and what you were doing. By using our joint credit card to pay for romantic dinners with another man. By creating a public narrative that portrays me as an insecure husband who can't handle his wife's success. That's exactly what you are. No, Vesna. What I am is a man whose wife has been having an emotional affair while gaslighting him into thinking he's the problem. What I am is a father who's been documenting everything to protect his daughter's future. Mina looked up from her homework, her 7-year-old eyes wide with confusion and fear. Daddy? Mummy? Why are you yelling? Nate's expression immediately softened. We're not yelling, sweetheart. We're just having a grown-up discussion. Why don't you go watch TV in the living room while Mummy and I finish talking? After Mina left, the silence stretched between us like a chasm. You've been planning this, I said finally. I've been protecting myself and my daughter from someone who's been lying to us both. I never lied. Every time you said you were working late when you were actually at dinner with Marshall, you lied. Every time you blame my concerns on insecurity, instead of addressing your behavior, you lied. Every time you told our friends and family that I was threatened by your success, you lied. Those weren't lies. Those were interpretations. Those were manipulations, Vesna, and they're all documented now. What do you want from me? I want you to stop. Stop the dinners. Stop the deception. Stop trying to make me the villain in your story. And if I don't, then we'll let the evidence speak for itself. That night, I lay awake replaying every conversation, every dinner, every moment I'd dismissed Nate's concerns as jealousy. Had I been lying? Or had I just been protecting something I didn't want to examine too closely? Either way, it was too late for self-reflection. The machine Nate had built was already in motion, and I was about to discover just how thorough my methodical husband could be when he set his mind to something. The sealed manila envelope on my desk the next morning felt like a bomb waiting to explode. My name was typed on a white label with "Confidential Legal Matter" stamped in red ink below it. Inside were photocopies of documents I recognized, and some I didn't: credit card statements, restaurant receipts, rideshare invoices, email timestamps, and badge access logs. But there were also things that made my blood run cold. Screenshots of text messages I thought were private, calendar entries showing the pattern of my late meetings, and a timeline that laid out 4 months of deception with mathematical precision. At the bottom was a business card: Jennifer Walsh, attorney at law, family practice and domestic relations. My hands were shaking as I called the number. "Ms. Lirienne," Jennifer Walsh's voice was crisp and professional. "I represent your husband in a pending domestic matter. The documents you received are courtesy copies of materials that have been preserved as evidence. My client wanted you to understand the scope of documentation before any formal proceedings begin." "What kind of formal proceedings?" "That depends on your response to our initial concerns. Mr. Rourke is prepared to pursue divorce proceedings citing marital misconduct, but he's willing to consider alternative resolutions if certain conditions are met." "What conditions?" "Complete cessation of contact with Marshal Davenant outside of necessary work functions, full disclosure of all financial expenditures related to your relationship with Mr. Davenant, and a formal acknowledgement that your characterization of Mr. Rourke's concerns as jealousy or insecurity was inaccurate." "You want me to admit I was wrong?" "We want you to admit you were deceptive." "There's a difference." "And if I don't agree to these conditions?" "Then we proceed with filing divorce papers that include a request for full financial disclosure, temporary custody arrangements, and a detailed accounting of marital assets that may have been misused during your relationship with Mr. Davenant." The line went quiet except for the sound of my own breathing. "Ms. Lirienne, are you there?" "I need time to think." "Of course. But I should mention that Mr. Rourke has already moved out of the family home. He's staying with his brother temporarily while arrangements are finalized." "He moved out? When?" "This morning. He'll be picking up your daughter from school today to explain the new living arrangements." The call ended, leaving me staring at the evidence of my own destruction spread across my desk. Every receipt told a story. Every timestamp revealed a lie. Every pattern pointed to the same conclusion. I had been living a double life, and my husband had been documenting every moment of it. A knock on my office door made me jump. Paula Shin stood in the doorway, her expression carefully neutral. "Vesna, I need you to come to HR immediately. We have some additional matters to discuss." The walk down the hallway felt like a perp walk, with colleagues glancing up from their desks as we passed. By now, everyone knew something was happening. The glass-walled conference room had become a stage, and I was the unwilling star of a corporate drama. Inside the room, Paula wasn't alone. A man in an expensive suit sat at the table, with a briefcase open beside him, documents arranged in neat stacks. "This is David Chen from our legal department," Paula said. "We need to discuss some developments in your situation." David looked up from his papers. "Ms. Lirienne, we've received additional documentation regarding your expense irregularities. The evidence suggests a pattern of behavior that violates several company policies." "What kind of violations?" "Misuse of corporate resources, inappropriate relationships with supervisors, and potential conflicts of interest. We also have concerns about your characterization of these issues to other employees." Paula slid a transcript across the table. "These are notes from conversations you've had with colleagues over the past several weeks. In them, you've made statements about Mr. Davenant that could constitute harassment or defamation. I scanned the document, recognizing my own words twisted into something ugly. Comments about Marshall's attention to my career, jokes about Nate's insecurity, casual dismissals of office gossip, all of it presented as evidence of my unprofessional conduct. Where did you get this? Several employees came forward with concerns about your behavior. They felt uncomfortable with your characterization of your husband and your relationship with Mr. Davenant. They were just conversations. They were statements made in the workplace about ongoing personnel matters. And unfortunately, they contradict the professional nature of your relationship that you claimed in our previous meeting. David opened his briefcase and withdrew another folder. We also have Mr. Davenant's formal statement. He's provided a detailed account of your interactions, including instances where you initiated personal contact outside of work requirements. That's not true. According to his statement, you repeatedly requested private meetings, sent personal text messages, and made comments about your marriage that made him uncomfortable. He states that he attempted to maintain professional boundaries, but you persisted in trying to develop a personal relationship. The betrayal hit like a physical blow. Marshall had completely rewritten our story, making himself the victim of my inappropriate advances. He's lying. He was the one who initiated everything. Do you have evidence of that? David asked calmly. The text messages, the dinner invitations. We've reviewed the text messages. They show you responding enthusiastically to professional opportunities, but the initiation appears to come from your end. I realized with growing horror how carefully Marshall had crafted each interaction. His invitations had been phrased as responses to my ambition, his touches presented as reactions to my enthusiasm. On paper, I looked like the aggressor in a relationship I'd thought was mutual. This is insane. You're taking his word over mine. We're following the evidence, Paula said. And the evidence suggests that you've been using company resources to pursue a personal relationship while creating a hostile work environment through your comments about both Mr. Davenant and your husband. What does that mean for my job? David closed his folder. It means we're placing you on administrative leave pending a full investigation. Your access to company systems will be suspended, and you'll need to surrender your corporate credit card and building access badge. You're firing me? We're conducting an investigation. The outcome will depend on what we find. And what about Marshall? What happens to him? Paula and David exchanged glances. Mr. Davenant has been counseled about maintaining appropriate boundaries with subordinates. He'll be attending additional training on professional conduct. That's it. He gets training and I get suspended. Mr. Davenant didn't misuse company resources or create a hostile work environment, David said. His conduct, while perhaps lacking in judgment, doesn't rise to the level of policy violation that yours does. As I cleaned out my desk under the watchful eyes of security, I caught glimpses of colleagues whispering in clusters. The story was already spreading, mutating, with each retelling into something worse than the reality. My phone buzzed with a text from Kira. Heard about work, come over tonight, we need to talk. But when I got to my car, I found another envelope under the windshield wiper. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a court seal at the top. Notice of divorce proceedings. You are hereby notified that dissolution of marriage papers will be filed in Superior Court within 48 hours unless alternative arrangements are agreed upon by all parties. At the bottom, in Nate's precise handwriting, Mina is safe and knows she's loved by both parents. This doesn't have to be ugly, Vesna, but it's going to be honest. I sat in my car in the company parking lot, suspended from my job, facing divorce papers, and finally understanding that my methodical husband had outplayed me at every turn. The game was over. I just hadn't realized I'd lost until the final score was posted for everyone to see. 1 year later, I sat in a small apartment overlooking a quiet Atlanta street, the kind of place people move to when they're starting over. Mina's laughter echoed from the living room, where she played with the dollhouse Nate had bought her for her 8th birthday. Today was my unsupervised Saturday, finally earned after 12 months of therapy, parenting classes, and flawless supervised visits. I'd paid the last attorney fee installment 3 weeks ago. The check cleared without fanfare. Nate arrived at 10 a.m. sharp to drop her off. Same navy coat, same calm demeanor. No anger, no triumph, just routine. "She's been asking about the science fair," he said, handing me her backpack. "She wants you to help with the volcano." "I already bought the baking soda," I replied. He nodded. "Good. She'll like that." Mina ran over, hugged his legs, then mine. "Bye, Daddy. See you tomorrow." As the door closed behind him, I knelt to her level. "Want to make the messiest eruption ever?" Her eyes sparkled. "The biggest one." We spent the afternoon covered in red food coloring and laughter. Later, while she napped on the couch, I opened my laptop, not to plot or flirt, but to finish the online course that might let me rebuild a career, this time honestly. The receipts were gone, deleted or irrelevant now. What remained was this: a 7-year-old who still called me mommy without hesitation, a co-parent who no longer needed to guard against me, and the slow, unglamorous work of becoming someone trustworthy again. I'd lost almost everything in spectacular fashion, but in the quiet spaces between court dates and shame, I'd found the one thing I hadn't known I was missing: integrity. It wasn't dramatic redemption. It was just showing up, every weekend, every phone call, every promise kept. And for Mina, that was enough.